Renowned Czech racing champion Zdeněk Koubek, who had previously broken a world record in the women's 800-meter race, made history in 1935 when he declared that he was going to live as a man. Zdeněk Koubek, a well-known Czech track star, made a revolutionary declaration in December 1935. He would begin living as a man, true to his gender. Sports fans were taken aback by this announcement since Koubek, who competed in women's competitions and even set a world record in the 800-meter sprint, was labeled a female at birth. Nonetheless, Koubek had chosen to have gender-affirming surgery performed in Czechoslovakia since he had long acknowledged a link to masculinity. They wanted to set an example for upcoming generations of transgender athletes by transitioning into men's sports. Koubek's gender transition catapults him into global stardom. A relatively obscure athlete, Zdeněk Koubek was only known to European sports fans for holding the world record in the 800-meter women's sprint. But following his shift, Koubek's notoriety took off, turning him into a household name. In August 1936, he performed on Broadway in New York and was courted by Paramount for a film about his life. He then traveled to Paris, sharing the stage with Josephine Baker and garnering interviews with French newspapers for a hefty 1,000 francs. Major publications like the New York Times, Time, and Physical Culture chronicled his journey, with many stories displaying empathy and understanding. Physical Culture wondered, how is such a transformation possible? Can science alter the sex of a human being? And concluded that gender transition was more common than readers might think. Time acknowledged that while sex change cases fascinated the public, medical professionals recognized that nature sometimes blurs sexual development in individuals. A belated interest in sports. Born in 1913 in the small village of Paskov, in what would soon become Czechoslovakia, Zdeněk Koubek pioneered a broader conversation about the fluidity of male and female categories, paving the way for future generations of transgender individuals. Although Koubek's achievements in sports history were largely overlooked, historian Lindsay Parks Pieper notes that his story highlighted the emerging technologies that made gender-affirming surgeries possible. At first, Koubek had little interest in sports. He thought it was confusing, even comical, to see athletes warm up with such vigor. Koubek acknowledged in a later piece that he found it hard to understand why somebody would spend so much time training for something that seemed so unimportant in the Prague Illustrated Reporter. But when Koubek and his colleague got an invitation to a nearby track meet, that is when everything changed. He was mesmerized by the athletes' grace and agility as he watched them compete. Koubek found a connection and started to get interested in sports. He began gathering sports publications, clipping out pictures of his idols, and quickly became impatient to give it a shot. Astonishingly quick time, at 1934 Women's World Games. Koubek, who was given the gender female at birth, decided to compete at the top level in the Women's World Games, a quadrennial competition that rivals the Olympics. Koubek moved to Prague after moving up through the ranks in Brno, with his sights set on the 1934 Women's World Games in London. Koubek prepared for his specialty event, the women's 800-meter dash, in August. On the opening lap, Koubek was running in third place, which was a rough start to the race. But in a surprising show of resolve, he did not give up, pushing himself to reach amazing speeds and passing his rivals. As Koubek dashed to the finish line, the audience held its breath in unison. He broke the world record and crossed the line first. The newspapers celebrated Koubek's accomplishment, noting that he had done so in amazingly rapid time, solidifying his place in history. The public largely embraces gender transition. After winning gold at the Women's World Games, Koubek struggled with the gender he was born with and went on a self-discovery quest. "My soul has always been more attracted towards being a male," he said, disclosing to the media that his true identity was in line with being a man. Koubek started his road toward gender affirmation in the fall of 1935. He worked with a physician who conducted many procedures and gave him official recognition as a male. Koubek persisted in getting the care he required even though at times he felt like a guinea pig in the healthcare system. Support for Kobek's decision to live as his true gender was overwhelming when he made it public. After retiring from women's sports, Kobek said he wanted to play males. Head of the Women's World Games Alice Milliot waved away the notion of taking away Kobek's gold medal, reasoning that if he had changed his gender, he would have done it as a woman competitor first. Milliot accepted Kobek's want to leave women's sports behind and embraced his new chapter. American sports official Avery Brundage had concerns about athletes competing in the Olympics who he considered to be hermaphrodites. He questioned the eligibility of female competitors who seemed to have traits of the other sex in a June 1936 letter to the head of the Olympics. He recommended that athletes whose gender is questioned undergo the required medical examinations. Given that Kobek had no intention of participating in women's sports following his transition, this action appeared to be punitive and wrong. Months later, Brundage's recommendation was codified as law. A policy allowing for medical tests of competitors whose gender was challenged was implemented by the International Amateur Athletic Federation, now known as World Athletics, at the Berlin Olympics. As the gender tests at the Olympics increased, Kobek's visibility in the media decreased. He got married to Ursulou Skrabakovo, got a driver's license that identified him as a man, and got a job at Škoda. Following a 10-year break, Kobek resumed his athletic career in 1944 when he joined a men's rugby league in Prague and played according to his own rules. Kobek never went on to compete in the Olympics, but he managed to rediscover his love of sports and lead a genuine, proud life.